Here to help me take a further look at the numbers and talk about economic truth, explore the various means of obstructionism the president will have to overcome, political analyst and contributor at thegrio.com, Zerlina Maxwell, and managing editor for thinkprogress.org, Igor Volsky. Thanks to you both for being with me.
Thank you.
So I want to start, Igor, with you and take a look at, we have a series of charts that I thought really illustrate the point. The first one sort of illustrates this idea that, basically the rich got richer. You can see the sort of the winners and losers, and that essentially what happened as, stocks and all of these things improved, that benefited the top wealthiest 1% and that did not actually trickle down to the rest of us.
Yeah, and these are really long-term trends we're seeing. They're kind of exacerbated now, and it's actually part of the reason why so many Americans don't trust government, because for so many years they've seen government as just helping the very, very rich, the very, very few. And so now the president is looking into 2014 and is asking, what can we do? What can we do as a country? And I'm a little optimistic. I'm a little optimistic about 2014.
Now tell us why, Igor.
because in 2014, 2016 looms very large, certainly larger than it did in 2013. And so Republicans know that to win a national election, they're going to need to do something on immigration. They might need to do something on pre-K, investing in our children and the education system. They might need to do something on minimum wage. And those are all issues that empower lower-income Americans and that help close that gap. So there might be some hope on the horizon.
Zerlina, okay, Igor's hopefulness aside, it's still early in January, so he's still feeling the glow from New Year's Eve, apparently. But here's the thing. I mean, we also saw that essentially wages for American workers, while their productivity increased, their wages remained pretty flat, and they didn't see the benefits of those increases in productivity. That wasn't invested back into workers.
Right.
And yet, President Obama, as we were just talking about, he campaigned on this idea just, not that long ago. And he had proposed, the thing he also has proposed is an overhaul of business taxes and loopholes to create funds for investment and job creation. But at every negotiation, what we hear from the GOP is we can't touch the 1%.
Right.
We can't touch, we can't touch tax loopholes. We can't do it.
It's amazing to me that they don't remember that they lost in 2012, and the entire message was Democratic policies will help those at the bottom, and it will lift everyone up. Republicans were the exact opposite, and they've governed that way, and yet they lost and don't seem to get the hint. And I think the bottom line is that it's not just obstruction, it's also destruction of the U.S. economy by bringing us to the brink of default more than one time and blocking anything and everything that would help to create jobs and help those people whose wages are stagnant.
And actually, Igor, to that point, I mean, this sort of toying with consumer confidence has been a real problem because, as we've seen, I think we have a graphic here that we'll show you in just a moment, that sort of whipsawing has not only hurt consumer confidence, but it also has hurt our confidence with the business community and frankly the rest of the world. Are we going to shut down? We're not going to shut down. Our credit rating is lowered, and we're actually facing something to that effect coming up in February with the debt ceiling conversation.
Yeah, and you see the business community, a traditional ally in the Republican coalition, kind of waking up and saying maybe some of these Tea Party guys, these ideologically pure candidates who don't want to increase any taxes, who just want to cut social programs, maybe they've taken this a bit too far. I mean, to the point where they're toying with the debt ceiling, where they've shut the government down. Yeah. And that's why you see this tug of war within the party. And I think at the end, in 2014, you're going to see more kind of the traditional business-friendly Republicans come into power, and I think they're much more likely to compromise with Democrats than the current Tea Party breed. So there's another, I think, another example maybe of some optimism moving into the new year.
Zerlina, I want to talk about jobs and wages, because that's another thing the president tried to address in the American Jobs Act, which he proposed. He has also tried to he kind of did it in one big package. Then last summer he cut it up into other pieces. Right, and talked about let's invest and how do we do that in such a way that we're actually creating jobs and training programs and so forth. And yet the GOP continued to block it. And, you know, the bare minimum thing we're trying to get done right now is an increase in the minimum wage.
Right, which is a winning issue for Democrats and Republicans if they were willing to hop on board, but yet they don't actually want to govern the country. They don't want to do anything that is helping folks. And so we just see them in there and they're saying no to everything, even if it's something that is a bipartisan issue like the minimum wage.
Actually, Igor, I've got a little sound to just share with you how the Republicans feel about the minimum wage.
Minimum wage laws have never worked in terms of helping the middle class attain more prosperity.
I don't think raising the minimum wage, and history is very clear about this, doesn't actually accomplish those goals.
When you raise the price of employment, guess what happens? You get less of it.
You know, Igor, part of what strikes me is that, again, when we get to the fall elections, we have to remind voters that that is the tune that Republicans were singing when it came to the minimum wage and to some of these other things we've been talking about, ideas to actually further stimulate the economy and create jobs, versus the president and Democrats who, starting on Monday, are going to try to push both for unemployment insurance and a push for the minimum wage.
Yeah, increasing the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour will pull about 6 million people out of poverty. I mean, that's really remarkable. When you talk about how that's going to grow the economy, that's really something I think that lawmakers on both sides should be asking for. And these same Republicans who are now saying, no way, it's never been proven to help. I mean, they voted for a minimum wage increase under Bush several times. So, yes, this is political. Yes, this is about being against Obama. But when these folks have to go home, talk to their constituents in some of the districts where the races are actually competitive, and I think, again, on the national level in 2016, I think, at least I hope there's going to be some room for compromise.
Igor's very hopeful. Zerlina and I were a little bit more skeptical, but regardless, I do think that this issue is going to be critical in the midterm elections because I think it's going to be an obvious choice of priorities between are we really going to protect those tax loopholes or are we going to actually help our people make the money that they need to actually live? But we shall see. Zerlina Maxwell and Igor Volsky, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for me. Thanks.